everyone. Welcome to the SoCal Summer Podcast. This is me, your host, Andre, and today I am joined by the wonderful, the enthusiastic, the energetic, the ever so extroverted Nick Crankshaw. Did I say it right? Last name?
Not even close, but
Oh
that's
my
okay.
gosh, I was practicing too. I was practicing. Okay, correct.
It's all right. Cruickshank, like the cat from Harry Potter. Yep, there you go.
Cruickshank, Cruickshank,
Yeah.
Cruickshank. All right,
Thank you,
I got
Audrey.
it in
Thank
mind.
you for having me. Wonderful to be here.
Of course, and it's 5 o'clock where you're at now, right?
It is. It is.
Well, I appreciate you being on right at the end of the day, because you are in Philadelphia.
Yes, sir. Yep.
I think that is a perfect segue for us to know who Nick Cruickshank is.
Well, hello, everybody. My name is Nick Cruickshank. I am a dancer and scene leader here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I grew up in the suburbs of Philadelphia. I moved in here for college. I started dancing in September 2015, and the rest is history.
It's history. And you said 2015?
Yeah, yep. That was when I was a freshman in college and found the college swing club then.
Who was your instructor?
So I joined the West Philly Swingers, which are at the University of Pennsylvania. My first instructors were Greg Avakian and Laurie Zimmerman, two just legends of the Philly lindy scene, who had been around for a long, long time, and had been leading that club, teaching that club for 20 years at that point.
Yeah. That's really cool. And so full disclosure, we did this podcast already, but we were short on time and I wanted to redo it because there was such good stuff. And you had mentioned that you had gone to other clubs, right?
Yeah.
But how did talk me through that process?
So I went to college and I tried out for the soccer team, but there were 104 people trying out for this club soccer team, and there were 5 spots. Didn't get it. Tried
Mm-hmm.
out for a couple of different bands. I played the saxophone. I loved jazz music. Tried out for a couple of different jazz bands. Didn't get into them. Tried to get into a couple of different things, and just because that's a school that is kind of obsessed with being hyper competitive, I didn't get into them, and so one night I went to this performing arts show, which had every single performing arts group at Penn back to back to back to back to back to actually see the tap dancing team. But I wasn't as impressed with them. And then all of a sudden out came the swing club doing a showcase number to the theme from Monsters, Inc.
Wow.
I thought it was the most wonderful, fun thing ever. They were the only ones that looked like they were just legitimately having a blast on stage and not putting on a show face. So yeah, I ended up trying out for West Philly Swingers, and I did have to go through that process, but I ended up making the club and never looked back.
Snap. So it's this is so new to me, like the thought of you needed to audition into the club. All
Yeah.
students have to do that, right?
Yeah, and it's because the university demands of these clubs, they treat them, they come from this background of like a Eurocentric performance background where all of these clubs need to put on a show every year in
Mm-hmm.
order to be funded. So West Philly Swingers actually does one every semester with usually around 8 to 12 originally choreographed Lindy Hop and West Coast swing numbers. And it's a
Mm-hmm.
group of about 30 to 50 students that do it. So yeah, it's a really committed group. Did have to go through the 2 rounds of tryouts to get in, but because I accidentally misread the invitation and showed up in a bow tie, dress, clothes, and Nikes, while everyone else showed up in sweatpants. I think they could see the enthusiasm there, and were willing to take me, even though I could not triple step to save my life.
Snap. Dude, how does one prep for that kind of thing? How do you like train for that?
Well, I saw the I saw the West Philly Swingers performance to the Monsters Inc. theme song, and I went home and I looked up swing dance. And of course, when you YouTube swing dance on YouTube, you get ballroom East Coast swing instructors
Yeah.
telling
Yeah.
step rock step. So I did that a couple of times. Showed up and was absolutely pissed when the 6 count footwork. Not only was it not the same, but when the music, I had done jazz before. When I heard that was in 4, I was all over the place. So I think charisma alone, I do not think my dancing had any effect on my auditions.
Well, snap. Okay. Well, they found your enthusiasm and that's how you got involved with Jazz Attack, yeah?
that's how I got involved with West Philly Swingers. Jazz Attack is the local social dance. So West Philly
Ah,
Swingers is the
yeah.
college club. Yep. And started with them. And then that first week, they sent out a little, letter to um, all of the members of the club saying, "Hey, here's all the things that are going on." And one of them was Jazz Attack, which is Philadelphia's Thursday night social dance.
Hmm.
And so I went to it, and I had this little routine where I would go and take a psychology study at Penn, and they'd pay you $10 for 30 to 60 minutes, and then I'd take that $10 and I'd go to the dumpling stand outside of the dorms, and I'd spend $3 on dumplings, and I'd take the $7 that were left to go pay for the $7 lessons in dance at Jazz Attack on Thursday nights. And man, I fell hard and fast for Lindy Hop.
And you said you did that for several years, yeah?
Yeah, yeah. I only had to do the dumpling routine for one semester because I started in September, but I recognized that I enjoyed it so much. It really pulled me, in a hyper competitive university like that. I found myself in a dark place pretty quickly, and I recognized
Mm,
that Lindy Hop was a really powerful tool to not give me an escape from that, but help me process that.
hmm.
Uh, and so I knew immediately that I wanted to get more involved and help share that feeling that I had with more people as well. And so 4 months after I started dancing, I asked to join the Jazz Attack team as their volunteer coordinator, just
Hmm.
getting people to sign up for door shifts, nothing crazy. But that would get me in for free every week. And from there on out, I was there every single time.
Dude, that's quite the story of how you landed into Jazz Attack. And
Yeah.
speaking of the competition and stuff, we'll talk about that later on.
Yeah.
But if I were to understand your story correctly, you tried a bunch of clubs, but then you saw people swing dancing in a
Yeah.
show, which
Yeah.
is funny how a lot of people get into swing dancing because they see people do it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then from there, you started taking steps to learn and then get enmeshed in the college club and eventually with Jazz Attack. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And the college club is a really unique college club because it's so performance centric, but still puts the value emphasis on social dancing. So they
Mm-hmm.
have to do the performance to be accredited by the university, but they recognize the roots and the history of the
Mm-hmm.
dance.
Mm-hmm.
And that took some time to develop while we were there. Like, I'm not gonna lie, you can look up Nick Cruickshank Lindy Hop online and find me choreographing a Lindy Hop tune to Andy Grammer in my first year of dancing. There were dark, we
Oh.
made mistakes. It's we, we grew through those through those experiences. Um, but yeah, falling hard and fast was made easier by having that strong community of the West Philly Swingers, in addition to the broader Philadelphia scene at Jazz Attack.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's your start into
Yep.
dancing, right?
Yep.
When would you say you felt comfortable with swinging out, like dancing, just like not even thinking about what you're doing, you're just dancing?
Yeah, probably. So I remember distinctly my first comfortable social dance came about 2 months into my dancing. There was a wonderful leader in West Philly Swingers named Emily Fitzpatrick, and she
Mm,
was one of the dancers where every time you dance with her, you just feel like you're amazing. Um, and I had a social dance with her at our West Philly Swingers show offs, which is like halfway through the semester. All of
uh-huh.
the numbers give a little brief demo of how far they've come, and they get feedback from the rest of the group, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
a great bring everybody together. And there was some social dancing in between a couple of the mini performances there, and I remember getting through a whole song to probably "Take It Easy, Greasy" by Naomi and her Handsome Devils,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and just feeling like I was just over the moon. So yeah, we were swinging out pretty early with that group to put it on stage.
Nice. Now you mentioned something that I was curious about. You said members showcased how far they've come and got feedback from other members of the club.
Yeah, so this is in the performance context. So remember those shows
Gotcha.
every semester. There'll be 8 to 12 numbers. People in the club might be in, anywhere between 1 to 4 of those numbers per semester. Um, and the choreographers and the people that were in those dances would put on, a little mini showcase of how far they've come, how far they've gotten their choreography, and they get some feedback on how it looked and where they could take it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Gotcha. Now this is all completely like performance based, right? Or was this also just social dance and dancer based?
Well, the show is a performance.
Yeah.
However, even in the show, there was always an intermission, and intermission was the troupe members dancing and inviting the audience onto the stage to come dance with them.
Wow.
So social dancing was always a part of even the performances that the group was making, and all
Yeah.
of the training was done with social dancing in mind. And we, as the members, would take that and apply that to the performances.
Dude, that's really, really neat.
Yeah,
And I'm assuming because you did that, there needed to be a level of trust and a level of decorum and respect when giving that feedback, yeah?
for sure. Yeah. I mean, anytime you're giving feedback to anyone, especially when you are a couple months into your dance journey and being asked to give feedback to other people, or when you're, a year or two in and hearing feedback from someone that's a couple months in, yeah, there's definitely a necessity of um, knowing how to give helpful feedback there.
Yeah, that is something that I find really powerful because we'll talk about that more in like a community because being able to give constructive feedback as well as digest constructive feedback can be different because everyone is different. For me, for
Yep.
example, I don't like being given unsolicited advice because I need to be in a specific mindset to receive advice, you know?
Never give unsolicited advice, people listening to this podcast. Just, unless you're getting hurt. If you're getting hurt, tell someone. But yeah, oh gosh, that always sucks.
Yeah, 150%. And so I was just thinking about that in that context. That's really cool that that club has that. And I imagine that was a shift. So that was a shift from college to Jazz Attack. Yeah, because are you still in college?
No, no, I graduated from Penn in 2019. So I've been out for,
Gotcha.
yep.
Full-time adulting now,
Woo! Yeah, yes.
huh?
Yeah.
Okay, so then can you talk about how your transition was into Jazz Attack and what Jazz Attack is like now?
Well, I'm lucky that I had been a part of Jazz Attack even while I was still in college. So it wasn't
Hmm.
a total whiplash. It's definitely different in that, in the college group, you have that one set of people that you are doing these numbers with. Maybe your rehearsal is 11 to midnight on like a Wednesday or something like that. And you get tight with those people.
Hmm.
I think, the biggest difference is that this is just Jazz Attack. It's once a week and people show up when they want to show up. And so still longing for some of those similar social connections with other people. And I think that's what drives a lot of my community work is the social side of things.
Hmm.
Um, but it's definitely a change from the rigor and the required nature of a lot of things for the college club.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Now you mentioned it's once a week. If I were from out of town, what details would I need to know about Jazz Attack?
You head on over to jazzattackswings.com. You can find all the details on there. But every week, pretty reliably, 8 to 9 p.m., there will be concurrent beginner and intermediate drop in lessons. Sometimes there will be a theme for the intermediate lessons for a month. So, this past month for Black History Month, we had a Black History focus where each of those classes focused on a clip of some of our favorite an old clip of some of our favorite Black dancers and then breaking them down and working on them as a class together. But
Mm,
those drop-ins, you can come anytime. Intermediate drop-in, you can come anytime and build up your skills as you continue to work on it.
nice. So a comfort class and the social dance. Nice, nice. And you have live bands every once in a while, yeah?
Yep, every second Thursday of the month, we'll have a live band. And it's always, we're lucky that we have some really great live music here in Philadelphia, spearheaded by Chelsea Reed and the Fairweather Band, but some other great ones as well with Chris Oates and the South Philly Swing All Stars, Josh Lee and the extended family, and being in kind of the middle of New York City and Baltimore and DC gives us some other musicians to pull from as well for some really fun live music nights.
Dude, your location kind of reminds me of like Indiana. where I learned how to dance and how
Uh-huh.
it's in the middle of all these states. How often do you all travel to like their weekly dances or their events and stuff?
So that's something that we're still trying to build back up. Pre-pandemic
Mm,
happened a lot more frequently. Since coming back from the pandemic, we've been focused on building the dance size back up to its previous levels to get that stability as a community and as an organization. And now, really, just as of this past month, we're back at those levels, which is really exciting. So now, coming up in the spring, we have some plans to start doing that again. We have plans uh, to go down to Mobtown in Baltimore and to get up to Swing Remix in New York City and to go to DCLX and Pit Stop and these sorts of things.
yeah,
Hopefully, that we can instill in the community is something that's really fun. Not only to improve your dancing by dancing with people that have different styles and backgrounds, but as a social means of bringing people together.
yeah, 150%. Every I have to say, every time I watch your Instagram stories of when you go to Jazz Attack, I'm thinking, damn, that looks like a lot of fun. So
It's
that
a good
I
time. Every Thursday. Come through anytime you want.
yeah, I was like, I really want to go to Philly because I'm also friends with Lauren and Lauren, right?
Yep. Lauren
And
Levy and Mark
so
Bonnet. Yep.
I definitely want to see them again at some point. But yeah, you always make it seem, oh, not just you, but the entire atmosphere just seems super welcoming, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, first of all, shout out to Kate Holden, who is our social media and
Yeah.
she makes us look awesome all the time, and I'm happy to help out with that and hold the camera occasionally and get some of the shots too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, you Kate is part of it, you're part of it. Who else do have I met who's part of like that team? Mike teaches, yeah?
Yeah, yeah. So the team is made up of myself, Kate Holden, Jen Reddick, Irene Elias, Matt Rapp, Mike McDermott, and Jen Reddick. And it's a really wonderful. I think that's a team of seven of us. That we're all volunteers. We run the thing, and we've got a really good rapport at this point. So yeah, and Mary Margaret, if I missed her name on there as well.
Yeah, 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 for sure. It sounds like it. It sounds like you all have something really good going, which I'm I'm envious of. Not that we don't have something good here, but that team, that inner working team is kind of special to have.
It is, and it's partially out of necessity.
Mm,
Like we're Philadelphia, I like to call it the biggest little scene
hmm.
around.
Yeah.
Philadelphia doesn't have any professional swing dancers. Philadelphia doesn't have any all-star
Mm,
dancers. Philadelphia might have a dancer or two that could sneak their way into the advanced level at ILHC, but most of us are kind of in that open category or just non-competing type folks, which is the group that I fall into. And that necessitates this sort of we got to work together to build this up, and it's a mindset that not only affects us here at Jazz Attack, but affects all of the little constellation of dance events around the city. It's a rising tide lifts all boats mindset between Jazz Attack and the Balboa groups, the University Club, and that sort of thing. We recognize that and all work together to help make it happen.
yeah, dude, that's so cool that you all have that type of synergy. I was gonna say because I know that people in your area, there's also Nicole Chelsea, Chouse,
Yep.
and then Isabel.
Yeah. Isabel's down in DC. Big fan.
Oh, yeah. And then Phil also isn't that far from Philly, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He's down in Baltimore, but he comes up a good amount to dance in Philly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There are a ton of people that I've heard sing high praises of Jazz Attack. Um, which actually gets me to the next question is this may seem slightly woo-woo, but I definitely want to ask you about
Okay.
like what are the things you love about Jazz Attack?
Oh, that's not woo woo. I could go about this all day. I mean,
I
the
know.
the first thing is it's always the people that
Mm,
make it. And one of the things that I really appreciate is that recently Jazz Attack has really been putting in the work to build up the community,
mm,
top down and bottom up. It's just something where so many of the like quote unquote advanced dancers or top dancers of the group, uh, I and a bunch of others try to instill this mindset of we need to be a welcoming space that is bringing in everybody and making sure that anyone that walks through that door not only feels welcome but wanted and
Yeah.
seen in the space
Hmm.
that's super super important. So it starts with the people, and the fact that so many of them are willing to jump into that mindset is
Hmm.
really special. um, Number two, love the live music scene that we have here in Philadelphia. I hope that we can start getting more than one live band and dance a month going forward. And man, they are so so killer. Um,
Hmm.
and I think the third thing is that the group of dancers that we do have, this goes back to the people again, but they're willing to put in the time to create a great atmosphere for the dance itself. And there's
Hmm.
a number that go into that, but I think that like we have a really high quality set of DJs that are here that are playing
Mm.
music by great artists. We have teachers that are investing in understanding not only the steps, but like the cultural origins of this and making sure that they're culturally competent when they're teaching. Um, and then that mindset kind of spreads around the community too. And it's something where you just see so many people who are there on their first night being asked by some of the more experienced dancers and then gaining the confidence to ask other dancers themselves. Seeing that happen in real time, it's certainly not with everybody, um, but with a really good portion of the folks that are coming is something that I think makes it a really special place to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely hear when you're talking about the people piece,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So how do you all go about like fostering that welcoming environment and ask talking to the people about encouraging them to dance with other people?
Explicitly, like
Whew.
very, very explicitly with the people that I organize with. I'm adamant with them that like our purpose here is to create a welcoming space for people to come in, dance away the troubles from the past week, make new friends, and grow together going forwards. So it
Hmm.
starts with the team, and then from there, one of the other big things is after any of our intermediate lessons, we always make a point to pull them together and say, "Hey, we've got a lot of beginners here tonight, and they just watched you do a double tuck turn. They think that you are the greatest dancer they have ever seen. And if you ask them to dance, it's going to make their night. Can you commit to asking 3 to 5 of the new folks tonight to dance?" Like that sort of thing, those
Hmm.
like immediate requests, everyone, it flicks a switch with people and they recognize, oh, yeah, I was there. I should do that for this person. Let's do it. Let's make it happen together. And it creates the team beyond the team, like the whole community of people working together to make that happen. It's not just
Right.
one or two assigned taxi dancers.
Yeah, 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 for sure. So you talk to all of your organizing team, right?
Yep,
As
yep.
well as all of the dancers who've been dancing for a while. Let's call them that for namesake, right?
For dancers that are in that intermediate, like Lindy 2 group, those are people that have been
Yeah,
dancing 5 or more weeks. Like it's not
gotcha.
too crazy there. Yeah.
Gotcha. So not only do you talk like to your organizers and to dancers who come regularly, but you
Hmm.
also talk to your intermediate class and say,
Hmm.
"Hey, you were in this position before. Now you're here.
Yep.
They would love it if you asked them to dance." Imagine how you felt if someone asked you to dance, right?
Yeah, yeah, and, like, if people are there, and I hope that if people are there and they're seeing me and some of the other folks going around and very intentionally asking some of these new folks to dance, they'll just jump on and do it themselves too. So it's something that, like, is a very intentional effort. For me, when I'm running it, I prefer to use the 3-to-1 rule, which is I tell myself, "Okay, I'm gonna dance with 3 of the newer beginner dancers for every dancer that's at a similar level to me for the first hour of this social dance." Every single time I do that. And that's not something that I ask everybody else to do, but for people that like an explicit thing to reference, that's a good and helpful one that I've used.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can put myself in those shoes too. Like if I were a beginner I'd be
Yeah.
nervous because I don't know any of these people. I'm new to this dance. I may feel internally that, oh, I don't want someone to suffer this dance with me, you
Yep.
know?
Yep.
But I feel like in order for someone to say I'm suffering through this dance with someone else, they have to believe something else, right?
Yeah, and I love to give beginners an out too. Like whenever I ask someone to dance and they're like, "Oh, I'm really a beginner." I'm like, "That's fine. Would you like to dance for a minute or half a song?" Like that sort of thing. Oh,
Oh,
okay, yeah, I can do like half a song. And then we get half a song in, and I'm like, "Hey, it was really nice dancing with you. Do you want to keep going, or do you want to take a breather?" And some of them will want to finish it out, who wouldn't have wanted to do that otherwise. Other ones want to stop, and that's a great chance to not only dance with the beginners, but talk to them too, right? Like sometimes we'll go and we'll just, do all this crazy stuff with them, and then they're just kind of like, oh my God, what just happened? Like so and
right.
so dancer just danced with me, but I am busy and scared. Um,
Mhm.
Taking that time afterwards uh, to try to learn two things about them and leave them with two things that they've learned about me
Mhm.
is a wonderful way to actually get to know them, and then taking them and being like, "Have you met Shannon, who is also interested in this thing that you just told me about?" And then boom, connection, scene building.
Dude, I have never heard anyone everyone bring up the thought of, "Oh, you're a beginner. Do you wanna just do 1 minute? Do you wanna do half a song?" Or something
Yeah.
like that? Because then that does give him an out. That's so smart. Did you come up with that, or who came up with that?
I am sure I am not the first one to have the idea. It's not one that I heard from somebody else. It's actually something where a beginner with me said, "Maybe can we just dance a little?" And then I was like, "Oh, interesting. Let's keep that in mind and go from there." But yeah, it's something that I think has definitely helped, and a number of them do want to tap out after a minute or a minute and a half, and then we can just chat a little bit. That's perfectly fine.
Dude, that's so cool. That is I'm gonna steal that and
Feel
reference
it?
you.
Please go right
The
ahead. Yeah.
the first thing that comes to my mind is I don't know. I think that we do that at Lindy Groove, where we talk
Uh-huh.
about, "Hey, ask us to dance or
Mhm.
ask other people to dance," but I don't think we do it as
Uh,
explicitly.
yeah, no, the whole like, hello, beginner, ask this person that looks amazing to dance. Like they are scared of you.
Mm,
It
mhm.
has to be the other way around. Um, it wasn't for me when I started dancing because I had the unwarranted and unfounded confidence of a white guy that grew up in this was not told no very often.
Yeah.
Um, but for the large majority of people, it has to be the other way around there.
Yeah, you're very right in that sense. Because I remember I still get this way sometimes when I see some people dancing at a comic. I'm like,
Yeah.
man, I really want to ask her to dance. But I'm like, but she's so good. Like or they'll suffer through the dance with
Yeah.
me type
Well,
of thing.
the important thing is that I'm only asking that like half a dance question if I ask them to dance and they're like, "Oh no, I'm a beginner. I don't know." I'm not like going up to someone that I see is new and being like, "Hello, would you like to dance half a song?"
Uh-huh.
And it's like, "Oh, he doesn't want to dance a full song with me," versus the other way, it's no, he just wants to put me in a space where I'm comfortable and let me have some fun with it and then go from there. So yeah,
I think I'm gonna call this podcast "Dancing Half a Song?" question mark because that's so I love it. Now, when we're talking about dancing half a song or dancing with new people or encouraging that sort of community, I imagine that you ran into some roadblocks, yeah, or some difficulties at times.
yeah, there are definitely dancers that are there for purposes other than what I value the most. Like for me,
Hmm.
that community building and that sense of making a space where people can um, process their use it as a space to process, still go to therapy, yeah, but
Yeah.
use it as a space where you can get some of that out of your system. Um, is priority to me. There are some people that really want to focus on getting better for XYZ performance or competition or that sort of thing, and they only want to dance with dancers ABC. And I can't necessarily stop that, But what I can do is continuously show what I value, ensure that
Hmm.
I'm surrounded by a team of people that are aligned with that, and put people in positions of respect, like being a teacher or a DJ or even a door volunteer that
Uh-huh.
share the values too. Um, to me, when we do that, it sets the example for the rest of the scene and allows some of those people to be there without having that mindset that I don't always consider to be the most healthy at the local scene level,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
becoming overpowering for some of the people that don't share that.
Yeah, for sure. I do think that the Lindy Hop scene kind of has different pockets of people that believe different things, right? I think you
Yep.
and I definitely align on the community piece, but there are also people who have been dancing for over a decade, right?
Yep.
They've done the community thing and all that. And now they're like, oh, this is time away from my kids where I want to spend time with my friends, right?
Yep. Yep. And I totally, totally get that. In a space like where we are in Affiliate Jazz Attack, where this is the one chance that we have to build this community, I really,
Hmm.
but I think that there are tons of spaces for those sorts of people. Those, house parties, practice sessions, all those sorts of things seem like the perfect place to invite, the 5 or 6 people that you really want to dance with. Do it a
Hmm.
practice, have a great time together. Fully support that. But the last thing that I want at any of my events is a corner of people who the rest of the dance feels like they can't go up and dance or they're at the dance. Then you immediately start to feel excluded. And we did struggle with that at Jazz Attack for a while, and some days it rears its head again. But it's something that we worked very actively to try to pull apart.
Yeah, like the cat's corner, right?
Yeah,
Or the
yeah,
corner by the DJ booth, right?
yeah. It's always that corner. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
We actually at one point we put a table in that spot and removed the chairs to like kind of force a redispersion of where people were orienting themselves in the space.
Uh-huh.
That's it's again not trying to uh, say those people shouldn't be at the dance. They should absolutely come.
Right.
But in a case where we're trying to, where the purpose for me at least is to build community, that's what I want to
Hmm.
do versus just a hyper competitive corner.
Oh, yeah, I definitely hear you on that. And just to double down on that, if anyone is listening, this is not at all dogging on anyone who doesn't do this or who like has different values. Their values are completely valid because they have their reasons to do that, right? At the same time, I think because Nick and I feel strongly about the community piece, that's something that we value, right? Yeah, so doubling back on that, I feel like everyone's reasons for going to a dance and dancing with who they want is valid. I think where it
Mhm.
becomes difficult is when it becomes like an othering of people, right?
Yeah, yeah, and it's sometimes difficult because when that othering starts to align with what we can visually see about those people. So if it's someone, a group of people that share a similar background or body type or that sort of thing, it
Mm-hmm.
creates another layer on top of that of not a welcoming space for
Mm-hmm.
everybody. And there was a great Isabel who you brought up earlier, Isabel Mara Cardan in DC, shared this great story the other night, and I'd love to quote a little piece of it. Um, that was representation is great. It's always nice to see people in a scene that look like you, but creating a true environment where members of a community unconditionally support one another and provide space for each of us to exist as our unapologetic, unique selves. This is Lindy Hop. And this is what all of us should strive for, whether as leaders or members. And I saw that and I was like, I sent her a message. I was like, I want you to move to Philly and be on my like team with me here because that's exactly what we're going for.
Yeah, 150%. Like that's so powerful. I actually had a conversation with my friend Jennifer Wang. She was
Mhm.
here working with me, and she totally challenged me. She said, "Hey, when was the last time you danced with this person or this body type or something?" And I was like, "Damn,
Yeah.
you're right. I can't fully remember because I'm so engrossed in like, oh, I'm in my happy place. I'm seeing my friends, and I try to dance with a variety of people, but I think I just get consumed by that and don't actively work through it, right? So that's
We
a very, yeah, a very powerful statement that Isabel put there.
we all have those biases if we're not intentionally focusing on working on them. And stop me if I'm veering off of the course that you want to go, but that's one of the things that I think the scene could do a lot more of, is at both the local and the sort of traveling festival level, really intentionally welcoming people of all backgrounds and body types. Like, if you imagine what we usually see at a major international competition sort of thing, it's probably, folks who are largely white or lighter skinned, more slim, more heteronormative, this sort of thing. And I just think to myself, like, the dancing that we're seeing is reflective of that. Imagine how much better Lindy Hop could be if we had the full range of backgrounds and bodies that we see in the world around us.
Hmm.
There's so much that we're missing out on. And I think there's pieces at every level, but it starts at the local level of making sure that we're going and intentionally asking those folks to dance, making sure that they know that they're wanted in the spaces there, regardless of their background, regardless of their body type or gender presentation, and how that aligns with what role they're dancing and all those sorts of things. The more that we can do to eliminate those barriers, especially as the organizers of dances or people that have been dancing for a little bit, the more
Hmm.
welcoming the community comes, the more socially connected it becomes, the more stronger it becomes. And in social dancing, the social comes before the dancing. When you can create a strong social scene, you will have strong dancing that results from it. It's the most wonderful coincidence that I've found. Well, it's not a coincidence, but it's the most wonderful trend that I've found so far in organizing.
Oh yeah, 150%. So if you're a newer dancer, if you're just listening to this podcast because you're just starting out, this can be a lot like in the weeds and stuff.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think that there is a huge emphasis and a heart that people around the country and the Lindy Hop scene have for welcoming all body types, all different races, all
Mhm.
different sorts of people to make sure that it's a truly inclusive and welcoming
Yeah.
environment.
Yeah. And now it's about making sure that we're having that at all levels of the scene, making sure that judges and competitions or competition organizers aren't just setting the speed at 260 beats a minute because they can, because you're being exclusive about who can compete in that competition when you do. It's something where there was a great quote the other just yesterday from a really awesome webinar with Ray Armstrong and Shelby Johnson through their collective voices for change, where he said, "Yeah, I'd rather value self-expression over speed," and that was
Mm,
something where I was just like, it makes total sense when you say it there. Who cares how fast you can swing out? Show us how you can get down with it. Um,
yeah.
that sort of thing, you know, people of all backgrounds and body types can add their flavor to the dance there, and it can be so much better when we create the space to do that.
Oh, 150%. Um, we're starting to dive into that conversation of the competition piece. But
Yeah.
before we get there, I wanted to ask you a question.
Mhm.
And we kind of talked about this a little bit, but you talked about how making it very inclusive and welcoming and warm. What are other things that you wish to see more in different scenes or events?
So I think there's a lot that I would love to see change in the Lindy Hop world. The first one is that welcoming people of all backgrounds and body types.
Hmm.
But there are a couple others as well that are top of my mind recently. Um, the next is getting outside of the Lindy Hop and jazz bubble. I think Latasha Barnes has done a fantastic job of, like, putting in the forefront the full continuum of Black music and dance, and
Hmm.
the evolution of music and styles over time and how connected they all are. There's so much that we can gain and learn from taking some of those other classes or going to those other events, seeing what we like, and bringing the best of that into the Lindy Hop world that we have now. Um, Another thing is losing the volunteerism. This is something that I am definitely guilty of. The organization that I run is a nonprofit, and we are all volunteers. But charging more, being willing to pay more, and using that surplus to support the people who can't,
Mm,
versus intentionally just trying to bring the price lower and lower and lower to set the kind of lowest bar of entry. Having
Hmm.
having that intentionally priced, like this is how much this art is worth,
Hmm.
and then having the people who can pay that. Jazz Attack has something called the pay it forward system, where people can choose to pay more than the admission cost, and that extra money goes towards putting out free passes on the table that anyone can pick up and use for a free dance. It's kind of like that.
Hmm.
The idea comes from those $1 pizza slice stores where you
Hmm.
can post a note off the wall and get a free slice of pizza. Same idea there, and I'd love to see more of that in the scene.
Yeah.
There, how can we still welcome parents? The scene is getting older, and we need to think about how we're gonna create spaces where parents and little kids can be in the space, and then just encouraging and organizing people, encouraging and empowering people to organize locally. I
Hmm.
think big things. Yeah, five backgrounds and bodies outside the Lindy Hop bubble. Lose the volunteerism, childcare, encourage and empower to organize locally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, I kind of want to dig into the losing the volunteerism piece
yeah,
because Lindy Hop is, I think, and maybe I'm wrong, but from what I've seen, Lindy Hop is one of the cheapest dance forms out there. Like all of our
yeah.
events are super cheap, all of our dances are super cheap. They're far cheaper than some of the other like Latin and even West Coast events out there.
Do you know why that is?
Um, I'm curious to hear your insight.
To me, I think that it is that way because that's the way it's been. And we've told ourselves that this is our way of being inclusive is by making it cheap.
Mm,
Um, Whereas what we're actually doing is cheapening the art form, not making enough money to properly pay dancers, the instructors, and musicians,
mm-hmm,
um, and digging ourselves into this hole where we're just kind of constantly catering to the lowest willing to pay of people that might want to be interested in dancing. Um,
mm-hmm,
from my experiences, at least here in Philadelphia, we raised the price of our social dance. We started charging for the intermediate lessons that were a part of it, and we kept the same attendance that we had before, but we had more people start to use that pay it forward pass system that we had. So we were able to actually net more money because on average, more people were paying more. The people
mm-hmm,
that we were cutting down the cost for made up a smaller percentage. So we were able to make more off of that, raise what we were paying our teachers and bands,
mm-hmm.
and continue to welcome the people that couldn't afford the higher rates.
Gotcha. Yeah, that I think that's so true. And if you're listening and you are a business economics person, um, feel free to comment on this on Instagram when it's up
Yeah,
there, right? But when it comes to that topic, I don't know the answer, right? But I think that that's really powerful because it does pay it forward for the next people.
yeah,
One thing that definitely I think about is the artists, so the professional instructors and the full-time musicians, right?
right,
Um, there's
right.
this there's this new event called the St. Louis Gateway Get Down. Um,
All
I'm
right.
I am botching it, and my friend is gonna kill me. I have to say it correctly, or else he's going to kill me. Yeah, it's a St. Louis Swing Getaway Get Down. So I got it right.
Uh-huh.
But that event is insane because my buddy who's organizing it has a $10,000 cash prize for competitions because he's
Whoa.
trying. Yeah, dude, it's insane. It's insane because he's trying to raise the organizer bar to make sure that we're paying our professionals and the musicians what they're worth and more so that it's
Yeah,
actually sustainable and no longer this cheap thing
yeah.
trying to keep things low, you know?
Yeah, I don't think people realize that like the house of cards, like as cheap as possible, nature goes all the way to the top. Like think of the like top Lindy Hop events here, and those organizers are only getting paid for the time that they're spending at the event itself. None of
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
the artists that are coming in are only getting paid for the hours that they're teaching a class there. Like their flights and accommodations, sure, but like there's so much more that goes into this. And that's one of the biggest things that I'd love to see is those artists both the dancers and the musicians really getting being able to be paid what they're worth. That'll do so much good for the dance in the long term too, because more people will be able to do it. More people will be able to spend that time on it.
Hmm. Yeah, 150%. Um, Something that I was thinking about doing this whole thing was just the power the power of legacy. Because,
Mhm.
like you said, in the past, it was just, oh yeah, we're college students. We don't have very much money. Let's keep things super cheap. At least in the Midwest, all the events weren't more than, I don't know, 70, 90 bucks or something like that.
For a full
And
weekend.
for a full weekend, yeah. I organized an event once where I charged, I think it was insane. And I was in college, I was still figuring my shit out, but
Mhm.
I was charging $15 for a full weekend where people got housing, and there were six instructors, so three pairs of instructors, and they got a full weekend pass for $15. Because I was like, oh, I want to make it cheap. I want to make everyone come and all that. Now we had 300 attendees. It was insane,
Mhm.
but yeah, never ever doing that again. And from a financial standpoint, I actually had someone I was dating at the time be in charge of finances, and she like yelled at me when she saw the books. She was like, "This is you can't do this again. There's no
Yeah.
way that's sustainable." So from
Yeah.
the payment perspective, it definitely makes sense.
Yeah.
You know
Yep.
that
Well, that's
being. Oh, go ahead.
yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, no, it's all good. I was gonna say, like, there are places where we want to make it particularly affordable for certain groups of people. Younger dancers being one of those key groups in making sure that there's like a constant stream of new um, energy that's entering the scene. That's important, and it's something that the West Coast scene actually does a lot better than the Lindy Hop scene. Is they have
Mm.
some really solid student discounts on a lot of their
Yeah,
events least on the East Coast. Not sure about the West Coast where you are. But it can literally be a third of the price for a student versus a regular attendee because they recognize the value of having them there. That said, for folks who can afford to pay that amount, it's important that they're paying for what the art is worth so we can continue to support and share the art form.
for sure, and scholarships as well. Because I know Camp Hollywood
Yeah.
does
Yep.
scholarships, and I think that's really powerful because it gives the opportunity for people of different backgrounds to be
Hmm.
able to attend events that they otherwise wouldn't be able to, right? If they're provided
Yep.
housing and a ticket, that's
Yep.
huge.
Massive. Yeah.
So one of the things I did want to bring up with you is the competition piece because we were talking about events, yeah. And you said that you don't compete, yeah.
Not typically. No, sometimes if there's, an open mix and match sort of thing, I'll throw my name in the hat, but I don't train to compete.
Yeah. So as far as Lindy Hop and competition goes, it's kind of strange, right? Because it's several people have different views, and everyone's feelings are valid in regards to competitions, but I was curious to hear like your what you thought of competitions and where your mind was at and all that.
Yeah, I think ILHC held a really solid panel on this at their event in Europe.
Mm,
And one of the things that they talked about is that historically, a lot of the feeling and sense of competition was organic. You
mm.
go to
Oh, you might have
something
frozen
hits,
for a second.
someone starts going, "Oh, did I freeze? Am I
Nope,
okay?"
you're good. You're back. You're back.
Alrighty. But anyways, you go to a house dance or something like that, and when someone's really going off, uh, it'll form a cipher naturally around them, and then people start
Hmm.
in and out. And this is something you'll see across many different Black vernacular art forms. But that it's something that's more organic. I believe, gosh, I'm struggling to remember which member of the panel it was that talked about this, but they're like, we even compete to dress up in how we're looking at church on Sunday, like that sort of organic competition sort of thing, versus this structure that we've created that centers around mix and match, formerly known as Jack and Jill competitions or strictly competitions, that sort of thing. That sometimes um, I think it can bring the best out of folks and inspire them, but it's something that often feels a little out of place to me with that sort of organic competition feel that has been described as a value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember Tydrick posted this when it was either a story or a video or something where they were talking about ciphers and how they were organic and community oriented,
Yeah,
you know?
and how it's a space for you to go in and say what you have to say, and then go out, and someone can come in and say what they have to say, and maybe that conflicts with what you had to say, and then you've got a battle sort of thing. Um, but it's not a space that's supposed to be like only the best can go in. Where sometimes we see this in jams where like only people feel like they can only go in if they know air steps and they can swing out super fast, and the jam circles only form when the song is 240 beats a minute, and this
Hmm.
sort of like no, it's like you said, it's about the community coming together, often sparked by a catalyst of someone just really going off, and that feels like it's missing in a lot of the more number on back competitions that we see today.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. So I remember there were some jam circles that I experienced where it wasn't planned. People didn't say, let's start a jam circle or
Right.
whatnot. Someone just heard the song, people were dancing. There were these two people that just popped off. And so
Yep.
everyone kind of centered around them and just started clapping. And the start of that jam and the people that went in, I'm pretty sure, yeah, it was at Pit Stop. It was at Pit Stop, right? That
Yep.
event is so fucking good. Like, it's one of my favorite events because it's so raw and just full of, we're just here to dance. That's all we're here to do, you know?
We're book great bands. We're here to bring people together, and we're here to dance. Yeah, yeah. A simple formula that works really well.
That being said, I did talk to like some judges that I really appreciate. There's like Nick Williams, Natalia, and Matt Ritchie. They're all out here. And I talked with them and they mentioned how, yeah, or at least, sorry, with Nick Williams, he said that when you're doing a competition, it is performance. And if you are going to do a competition, I feel like a part of the competition is including the crowd, like, making it
Yeah,
not be like we're you're lucky to be witnessing us. It's more like we are lucky to give you back the energy you're giving us. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. I hear that, and to me, competition shouldn't just be that one thing. Like
Mhm.
competition happens on the social dance floor, and people like me, I say I don't compete because it's the easiest way for me to say I don't do mix and match or strictly or solo jazz wear number on back competitions very often. If we
Mhm.
start to give people the freedom to recognize that there are healthy, supportive competitions where no one's being given necessarily the number one ribbon, so
Mhm.
that's completely an option for people. Yeah, I hear what Nick is saying. It is definitely a performance. I don't want to rag on people that put a lot of time into that because it's definitely takes a lot of effort and they get a cool result out of it. It's
Mhm.
just not I tend to value as much in my dancing.
Yeah. And I feel like there are some people who are listening right now that might really resonate with that, where they say, I don't like competing. I want to just dance, you know?
Yeah. But it gets tricky when that becomes the source of validation in the scene. It being
Mm-hmm.
um, there are exceptions, but a lot of the higher level instructors will tell you that their gigs are or were contingent on high level competition wins at major competitions. Um, and those sorts of things, if that's what we put on a pedestal, we have to recognize the baggage that comes with that of those competitions are being set up by people that want a certain thing to be showcased there. They're being judged by people that are looking for a certain set of criteria, and they've come up through a system where they've won or lost in those capacities. And I don't know that the values behind all of those things have been right in the past. Easy thing to point at is the speed thing, right? Where like all of a sudden we're just cranking the tempo up and seeing who can hold on. I think there's a lot more to the dance than that, and we're starting to see more and more competitions like that. We're starting to see judges saying, "No, we're looking for personality more than a perfectly choreographed routine every single time." Which there's a space for both. Um,
Mhm.
but that sort of thing, that evolution, it's important to recognize how that affects what we perceive to be the top of the scene and how that trickles down. It's a lot of kind of undoing that we sometimes have to do at the local level to be like, no, you don't need to look like this dancer. You need to find what you want to look like, how you feel, how this dancing
Mhm.
makes you, not how you can turn your head like this and lift your arm like this and twist or swivel like this. There's so many different things that you can do to find yourself on the dance floor.
150%. And I feel, I personally, I love the classic competitions, or the competitions that are more like personality and more show us show us your style type of
Yeah,
stuff. You know, I
yeah,
maybe because like that's for me one of my strengths and one of the
yeah.
things I love. Um, but I do have to say that there is something to say about the competition culture with Lindy Hop. I was at a point where I was so upset that I didn't make finals, and I checked myself. I felt like, why do I feel this way? And there were other reasons, but one of them was because I was tying so much of my personal identity with how
Yeah,
well I was doing. And something that comes over on and on again that I hear professionals say is, you are not your dance ability or
no,
dance result, you
no,
know?
no. For like, your competition result is contingent on the one judge that saw you for 10 seconds to this particular song with this particular partner. Like, and maybe it wasn't even an assessment on the values that are the same as yours. So I put so much stock into it. It's one of the reasons that for me, the local scene is king. Like it's the local scene is it's the lungs of the swing dance scene. The competition side of things, it's wonderful. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
some of the the way it pushes some people to really work on their dancing and try to develop their style and that sort of thing. I'm intrigued by some of the battle type formats that are bringing out more of the values like call and response and connection to the every part of the music and how you're dancing to it. Those values, by the way, coming from a really, really awesome resource that Odysseus Baylor put together called a Blueprint for Cultural Inclusion. Um,
Mm,
highly recommend checking it out. But competitions that try to bring out those values are the ones that I enjoy the most. And it's interesting to see those value hierarchies clash in real time.
mm,
I think of the Savoy Cup Team City battle as an
mm,
example, um, where the most recent finals of it featured a team, I believe it was from Milan, Italy, that was so clean, so snappy, white tailored suits with purple accents.
uh,
A team from Belgium that was absolutely wild. Dancers like all doing their own thing, and like everything is different until everyone is swinging out together, and then it's different, and that like and seeing those two things on display, and the team from Belgium in this case won. I'm pretty sure it's Belgium. I have to double check there, Brussels. Um, but seeing those two things next to each other was like a clear depiction for me of some of the different values that have propagated through the competition scene over time and how they affect the way entire scenes can function.
it's so funny that you brought up like city scene competitions because mm,
Ah,
mm, but
ah,
I'm
oh,
I'm I'm scheming. I'm scheming on stuff
very,
because if you think about it that way, right? If you come up with like a battle sequence with your scene, that brings the scene together. That brings
yeah,
that city together, and you have like this like we're a scene together. We're going to this other scene to show our style, show our fun, and have
yeah,
something to say.
at its
Um,
best. Yeah,
yeah. So that when it comes to competition, I know that that's something interesting, and I know we didn't talk about this, but something else that I also find kind of in that realm is track placements, right?
Yeah.
Because those when I think of like the most stressful things of Lindy Hop, I think like organizing, competitions, and track placements, right?
And if it's stressful for you when you're a primary lead, imagine how it feels to the primary follows. Like
Right.
it's an entirely different ball game. And again, it's just a place where these values come up where all of a sudden, split second, you're like, oh, can this person triple step to a song that's 180 beat a minute? Is that really how we want to like value someone's dancing to put them into a track? Yeah, they're tough, they're tricky.
It's
I
very tricky. Yeah.
understand where people come from with them. I understand the desire for them, and I don't have any good answers around that, unfortunately.
Oh man, I don't think we ever will because it's a it's a two-sided coin, right? Because for one, you do want to have track placement so that people who paid money want to get the most out of the classes, right?
Yep,
But at
and
the
be with
same time,
level. Yep, totally
yeah,
understandable.
but then at the same time, there's that other coin that's also difficult. For if you're like a beginner dancer and you're wondering what track placements are, track placements are when you go to an event and the instructors watch you and then they put you in different tracks depending where they feel like you would gain the most
So
knowledge or where you would have, yeah.
the beginner section and the intermediate section and the advanced section and the masters, they'll typically disguise them as, colors or levels or something like that. But yeah, that's what they are. Yeah.
And then there's that whole other thing. I remember a couple years ago where if you got into a track, you got a specific colored wristband. And I remember going to
Oh,
the focus and like I
wanted to
remember when,
wear their same color or above. Yeah. Oh,
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I remember I asked someone to dance, and then before she said yes, she looked at my wristband, and
nah,
then she said, "Oh yeah, for sure." And I was thinking, "Oh, I'm gonna take this fucking thing off right now, just so
it,
like no one knows, you know?"
man, if you cannot find joy in dancing with people at any level of dancing, like, I think that was the biggest revelation for me early in my dancing as I started to get a little bit better was I've always recognized that I have just as much fun dancing with people that are there for their first or second time because they have no box. They're not in the jazz box yet. They're not
Hmm.
in, oh, I need to move like this and look like this and think like this box that we sometimes find ourselves. Man, yeah, that's such a rough place to be.
Yeah, I'll say that. I do think there is something valid. I think like the only caveat is just making sure like, oh man, I'm going to a bunch of places because I'm trying to figure out the best way to navigate this. But I
It's a
remember
podcast you can cut and edit and you want.
I'm I think I decided I'm just not gonna edit anything. I'll just keep it nice and raw. But
Oh wow. Okay.
I remember someone saying, um, the best dancers that they've seen, like really make an impact, are the dancers who can literally dance with anyone and have like a blast. Like
Yeah.
that, and I've seen that be really, really true. At the same time, we also have we everyone in the swing dance scene, I think, is in agreement about the whole you don't want to dance with someone if they're hurting you, right?
Yes.
Or if we
Yes.
vocalize
100%.
that or something like that. And then there's also the flip side where no one owes you a dance, right?
Yep.
But at the same time, it's so nice to have that. If that's the goal, is having that welcoming environment. Other people have different goals, like making money or competing and really training with those people or what have you, right? Um, but in my mind, I very much agree with you on the topic of like level tests and how they don't define your dancing. Like you are not your level test, right? So to wrap up competitions and level placements, right? If
Yep.
you were to talk to a beginner or someone who's never done a competition or a level placement, what's something that you'd want them to definitely hear?
I think the first thing here is that, because I don't do a ton of competitions or level placements, I'm not, I don't feel like I am an authority on the subject. But for someone that's starting and encountering them for the first time, the biggest thing that I can encourage them to do is dance just like they would at the weekly dance for those.
Mm.
That's not necessarily going to be the advice in some of those situations that wins them the competition or potentially gets them into the level they want, which is what makes it tricky. It's like, do you, for them want to kind of play to the game a little bit more, or tell them to stick to themselves. But man, I would so much rather people confidently stick to themselves than feel like they have to be somebody else for the sake of a competition or level check. Then that just seeps into your mind and you start letting that control the rest of your dancing as well.
150%. Now, I
Andre, I start calling this the 150% podcast.
the 150% is how many times have I said that now?
Uh, you can count on the replay, but it's a good bit. I want
Okay.
200% by the end of this.
Okay. Sounds good. I mean, I very much agree with you on that because that is my philosophy, right? Amy and I, my partner, Amy Cabrera, or one of my partners, she and I approach every competition with a mindset of it would be nice, right? And we just dance our best dance. We dance who we are, and we want to leave that floor with just one thing, that we're proud of what we put out there, and we just danced us. And
Yeah.
I think that's, I'm biased, but I really like going into it that way. And I think other people go into it with different mindsets, which is also completely valid, especially if you've trained really, really hard, right? And you want to say, yeah, I want to go home with a medal. That's 100% valid, right? I will say, for anyone who has never competed or never done a level test, it is definitely, you are not your level test or your competition results. You are so much more than that. Dare I say, there's so much more
Yeah.
than just this dance,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And so I hope that like the newer people who are listening are able to take that away, that you know you are not that, you are so much more, and the fact that you're doing this dance at all is a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yep. 150%.
Nice. Well done. Okay, so we're gonna go towards the wrapping up part of the podcast. So I have just a couple final questions, right? So the first one is, if listeners were trying to find out more about you or more about Jazz Attack, where are the places they could look?
So you can find more about me on Instagram at Nick Swings Out or Nick Swings Out, whichever one you prefer to use as your mnemonic there. But yeah, find me on Insta. Got my website on there as well. You can learn more about Jazz Attack on Instagram at Jazz Attack Swings, on Facebook at Jazz Attack Swings, or at jazzattackswings.com. And yeah, feel free to drop a line if you ever coming through Philly. If you DM me, I'll get back to you.
150%. Oh,
Boom.
I did it again. Um,
Yeah.
and then, okay, so that's where they can find your information.
Yep.
You also, we had talked about this before, but you have an event coming up, right? In May?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of fun stuff coming up in May. Mob Jazz Attack is collaborating with Mobtown, which is the dance venue down in Baltimore, to do Mob Attack Jazztown, which is kind of an old school exchange where we'll have a band in Philly on Thursday night, and we'll go down to Baltimore on Friday night for a live band, and
Mm-hmm.
bring it home to Philly on Saturday for a Balboa dance, and then a live band dance at night, and an outdoor dance on Sunday. So come through; it'll be a fun time to have a good bit of dancing, and then yeah, lots of other stuff going on as well. Check online too, for all of the little constellation of Philly events happening along the way.
Yeah, that would be really fun. And speaking of events, so do you have any big major events where you plan to go this year?
Yeah, so you can catch me at my first DCLX. It was always during my college club show, so I could never go for years.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, my first DCLX. I'll be at ILHC. You can catch me at Uptown Swing Out. That is non-negotiable. My favorite events in recent memory.
Uh-huh.
And then maybe, just maybe, I might travel to Europe for an event sometime in the next year to visit some of my good buddies, Bryce and Ewan, that will be abroad in the area.
Yeah, great. Funny story. I actually was supposed to go to DCLX. I had my ticket and everything, but then I was talking to some friends, and we're going to Coachella instead.
I thought
Which
you responded that you were coming. I was all excited to see you there, but
I
that's
was re-
fine. Have fun at
I was
Coachella.
really excited. Yeah, I was really excited as well. But at the same time, I know that I only have one chance to go with Coachella, and these are dear friends of mine, and they're like the perfect people to go with.
Hey,
And
man,
I thought, you know, I'm never gonna go back to Coachella after this, but
have fun.
I know that I'll keep going back to like DCLX at some point. And this is for another topic, right? But I'm very much approaching dancing with the mindset of this is something I love to do and it's very important to me, but
Yep,
it's more important to me to spend time with friends and family if there's an event like a wedding that only happens once, right?
yep, absolutely. Right there with you, man.
Yeah. So, speaking of talking about those heartwarming and wonderful things, my last question I end all of these podcasts with is what's a message you want to leave for Lindy Hoppers that are listening right now?
I think the biggest thing that I can say is be a community builder. Like Lindy Hop is local. Lindy Hop has always been local. You know, the origins of this dance form is in a tight knit community with the beating heart in the ballrooms of Harlem, New York City, at the Savoy and the Alhambra and all these different places. Be a community builder. That can look like doing something like I'm doing, organizing an event for people to come to. If you're not ready for that, you can do something like committing to bringing one friend a month to a dance and helping to grow the scene that way, or committing to dance with 3 or 4 new dancers every night and not just dancing with them, talking to them, getting to know them. Be a
Hmm.
community builder. You know, that is the beating heart and the lungs of the swing scene. And if you invest in that, the dancing around you will get better too. Yeah.
I love it. I agree with that 200%.
Hey, I just wanted to, since we've done so much to talk about community building, I wanted to throw out a couple names for people to look up as
Yeah.
well. Some community builders that really inspire me. Miss Julia Loving up in New York City has been bringing together so many events and has put in a particular effort to have events that bring out some of the elders of the swing scene and connect them to some of the younger dancers. She's someone that I really think is great. Miss Sing Lim in Singapore runs some really fantastic events there and is actually being honored at ILHC this year. So you can have the chance to meet her there. But her dance in Singapore is one of the few places where I felt just as welcome, if not more welcome, than at my own dances here in Philadelphia. It was that good. She just does a really fantastic job. Hannah Buck and Rolando Alvarez down in San Antonio, Texas, making a beautiful space for dancing to happen and coffee. Go check out Bright Coffee if you're in the area. Um, Rest in peace, but Miss Michelle Stokes was someone that I really looked up to. There's a really fantastic episode on Chizomo and Bobby's podcast called Integrated Rhythm that features Michelle Stokes, and she talks about what her ideal Lindy Hop event looks like. And I think if you enjoyed any part of this conversation, you would enjoy that. Go check out the podcast and support it on Patreon. Penny Nelson is someone that is constantly sharing community building resources. And yourself, Andre, you're someone that I look to as well. Um, I think about your line dances that are, a really, really fun example of a way to build up a connection among people. And, anywhere in your wake, it just seems like there are people that are more connected to each other, whether it be those line dances, whether it be the houses at events that you're organizing or some of the other, party type things that you're throwing. I think you do a good job with that too. So, yeah, be a community builder, everybody, and check out those other folks for some inspiration.
Well, that's very sweet of you, Nick. Thank you so much. Super
Yeah.
appreciate it.
And maybe
All
put that 0.5 speed because I know I sped up the words a little bit there.
right. No, people got it. But wanted to thank you, Nick, for coming on to the SoCal Summer Swing Out podcast. And if you don't already, please follow us on Instagram. That's where you primarily post stuff, as well as YouTube and Spotify, all the things. Thank you, Nick, so much for jumping on. Just stick around. We'll chat a little bit after. But for everyone else, have a wonderful evening, morning, or whatnot. We'll see you on
See
the
y'all.
next one.
Swinging out.